Right from the start, William Lantigua's tenure as Lawrence mayor has been turbulent. He initially refused to leave his job as state representative. He's also been sued by Attorney General Martha Coakley for campaign finance violations, weathered 2 recall attempts, and seen several close associates indicted on corruption charges. All that, says Dan Rivera, makes Lantigua ineffective.
When you can't get industry to come in here and talk to you because you're toxic, you can't get state and federal leaders to come and take a picture with you or bring a check for any special program, that's a problem for us.
Rivera, a Lawrence city councilor, is challenging Lantigua for the mayor's job. He says Lantigua's public struggles make the people of Lawrence look bad.
To me, it's a real personal matter. We work so hard, to make this place such a good place. It's awful to have somebody that is so arrogant and so not like us. If you go to church in Lawrence and you go to work from 6 in the morning to 8 at night, and you come home and you got 2 kids in the school system, that's not Willie Lantigua.
Some of the voters we met agree that it's time for a change.
The future of Lawrence is looking grim.
Why do you say that?
I mean, it's the school systems are in the worst condition ever since he took over. Taxes are horrible for homeowners. I mean, the services that we receive in the city are horrible.
I had questions about properties when all the houses were going up, the foreclosures, and I wanted to know where you can go if you needed help. And there was no one to speak to it. It was, they'd forward, call the bank or call HUD and this and that. But in reality, we should be able to speak to our mayor.
But when we spoke with Mayor Lantigua at his campaign headquarters, he didn't sound like someone who feels threatened. In fact, the mayor told us his political position may actually be stronger than it was when he was first elected 4 years ago.
In those 3 precincts, in 2 we tripled the number, and 1 we doubled the number that we received in 2009.
The red areas on this map show the precincts Rivera won in the primary. Even there, Lantigua says his own support is surging.
Before my days are over, you're going to see all of this here, of the color purple. And I don't mean the movie, I mean the map of the city of Lawrence.
And Lantigua says that's because Lawrence is making strides, from newly paved streets to a succession of balanced budgets. His pitch to voters is simple.
Regardless of whatever personal reason or own feeling that they might have, look at it from a management point of view. Have I managed the city well over the last 3.5 years?
For Lantigua backers, that message is potent political fuel.
He's a good man. He's done a lot for Lawrence. Like, the streets of Lawrence never been so clean.
Mayor Lantigua is a person who is very straight. He is honest. You don't see that kind of politician these days.
Congresswoman Nikki Tsongas and Senator Elizabeth Warren are backing Rivera. But Lantigua says endorsements like that only go so far.
I have the people of Lawrence, the residents, endorsing me, the barbershop, the beauty parlors, and those are the people who really cast their vote.
And who might give Lantigua a second term as mayor.
Well, as most reporters in this market know, it isn't easy getting Mayor Lantigua on the record, so kudos to my colleague Adam Riley, who joins me here. How did that come about?
We were trying to get him. We called frequently, contacted the campaign, contacted his city hall office, and just didn't hear anything back. So we figured we would just go up and try to get someone who would speak on the mayor's behalf, even if he wouldn't. So we went to Lantigua campaign headquarters and, identified ourselves. And they put in a call, and 2 minutes later, he came down to speak with us. Apparently, the last time we talked to him during one of those recall drives, he thought that we gave him a fair shake, so he was willing to talk for a few minutes.
Is he media averse? Does he feel that the media's been unfair to him?
I think he feels certain media outlets have been unfair to him, including the Lawrence Eagle Tribune and I think other Anglo media. But he spends a lot of time working Latino media. Lawrence is overwhelmingly Latino. I think it's like 70% Latino of those Dominicans, and he's a Dominican American. Dominicans are a huge portion. So I think he knows that he can have beefs with Anglo media that maybe reinforce his standing among his base, and it's not the media he needs to be most worried about.
All right, we're going to broaden the discussion here and bring in Gabrielle Gurley, who's been covering the Lawrence mayoral race for Commonwealth magazine. And Gabrielle, your opening line in the Commonwealth magazine story was basically that he wasn't happy to see you.
He wasn't happy to see me because I just happened to pop in, but I ran into the same problems that Adam did in that he didn't want to talk to me, and I had written a story about him a couple of years earlier, which he perceived as not being fair, although it was mostly about the city of Lawrence and not about him personally. He perceived it as an unfair story. But also, he does not like reporters who challenge him. He prefers a straight, looking at his attributes and not at his flaws. So if you're going to ask him uncomfortable questions, then he remembers that. He has a very long memory and has you on a list, and he's not as eager to talk to you.
Adam, I'm curious, though, because he has a very charismatic quality.
He is a charismatic guy, no question.
People describe him as arrogant, but then at the same time they give him credit for things like cleaning the streets, repaving the streets, even though it was federal money. They give him credit for that. So there seems to be an enthusiasm despite all the... And he's gotten an enormous pile of bad press.
He's gotten as much bad press as an elected official can get. But he was the first Latino mayor elected in Massachusetts. And I think for his supporters, that's a huge thing. And I think that in a way, he has been able to very artfully turn the bad press that he's gotten into... sort of something that buoys his supporters and makes them more inclined to feel passionate about him. It's sort of a victim complex thing. He's a martyr. The Anglo political establishment is trying to take him down. And I think, that could even end up being decisive in this election. Gabrielle and I were talking before we came out about whether the Warren and Tsongas endorsements might backfire. And she thinks it won't. I think they could.
Well, I think you have to remember, I think Warren... You have to question the timing of it. I think it would have benefited Dan Rivera had it come a little bit earlier. Dan Rivera doesn't have as much time to capitalize on the Warren endorsement as he might have had it come a few weeks earlier, as the Nikki Tsongas endorsement did. But as far as Lantigua's popularity, you have to remember that he cut his teeth as a community organizer. He's very well known, has been a community organizer before he became a state rep and mayor in the 1990s. He was known for going into City Hall, holding up his phone number saying, if you're having problems with any level of government, city, state, or federal, call me. I'll help you out. People remember that. People remember that he brought Spanish-speaking workers into City Hall so that you no longer had to bring a translator there to get your work done. So people who have been outside the mainstream, outside of the establishment, remember that he opened up government to them.
And as Gabrielle pointed out in her latest Commonwealth Bag piece, there's a definite analogy between how he operates and how James Michael Curley operated when he was mayor of Boston. Again, this creating a feeling on the part of a group that believes they've been disenfranchised or not sufficiently included, that now they matter, they're important, their needs are going to be tended to. That's really powerful political stuff.
And in many ways, Lantigua is a throwback to that kind of early 20th century politics of inclusion, bringing a group that was outside the mainstream and maybe frowned upon by the mainstream and kept down by the mainstream, in that case the Brahmins in Boston, now bringing them into the power structure. Latinas very much feel empowered in Lawrence since Lantigua became mayor.
What kind of dent has Rivera made? Do people know him? Does he?
Rivera is a city councilor. He is well known. He's chairing the budget. He chairs the budget committee. So people know him as kind of the good government type. He is a Gulf War veteran. He's a graduate of Suffolk University. So he is well known in the city. But he doesn't have the longer community record that Lantigua does. But people do know him through his city government work, his municipal work.
Interesting ethnic wrinkle. Rivera is half Dominican and half Puerto Rican. And given how powerful, in particular, the Dominican community is in Lawrence, I think there's question about whether they will say, oh, look, here's someone who could represent us in the same way that Mayor Lantigua did, or whether they're going to look at Rivera and say, well, he's not really one of us because he's only part Dominican. And again, that could affect what the outcome is.
It's also a generational issue. Lantigua has been in Lawrence for many, many years. Many of the older immigrants know him. Rivera is a younger man, appeals more to younger people. So,
Gabrielle Gurley and Adam Riley, thanks so much.